Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to episode 18 of Holding the Sticks, a hockey themed fiber arts podcast. Hi, everyone, and welcome to my craft room here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Today is Sunday, April 21st, 2013, and as I said, my name is Emily. You can find me on Ravelry as Shanti Dragon and on Plurk and Twitter as Emily3022. So let's get into the show. I'd like to start, as always, by thanking all of you for watching and participating on the Ravelry group and communicating with me on social media. I've been a little bit quiet this week. The events that happened in Boston last week sort of made me go quiet for a little while. My husband is from the Boston area, and it hit us pretty hard when everything went down with the marathon and the lockdown and all of that. We have several friends in the Boston area and family that lives no longer right in the Boston area, but right around it. And when you have strong ties to a city like that, when something like that happens, it kind of throws you for a loop. So I do apologize for being so silent for the past several days. I've also not been feeling very well, so it's one thing after another. But I'm feeling better, except that last night I slept on my back wrong and I kind of throw my back out. So if you see me wincing or moving strangely, that's why. I have a massage scheduled later on this afternoon to hopefully get that fixed up. So forgive any strangeness in this episode. It's going to be a little bit of a not completely freestyle episode, but it might be a little bit different, maybe a little bit shorter. I am going as much as I can without notes today just to see how it goes. I have found the last several episodes, I feel that I'm relying on my notes too much and it's affecting the flow of the show. So we will get going with just a little bit of a pregame report. I am going to, of course, share my fiber arts projects progress. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the Girlfriends Knitting podcast. I'll do a little book review along with my fiber arts progress. And I will, on the hockey talk, I'm going to talk about the playoffs, how the playoffs work for the NHL and the AHL, and how the points are calculated and all of that stuff. So that'll be fun. Um, I'll talk a little bit about the Checkers and a little bit about the Hurricanes as well. So let's get right on into it, shall we? Come on into the zone in the first period. We have a little bit of developing play going on, or at least I do. I hope you all as well have some projects on the needles that you're working on. I only have one. I've been very monogamous lately. It seems like I just want to get one project finished and done, and so I'm not doing several at once. I hope that is not boring to you guys. But I have not started my finish along projects yet, or they've been started, obviously. I'll talk a little bit more about that knit along in a little bit. But I decided to cast on something new and simple. I need some summer socks, so I decided I would knit some. And I am using, oops, I'm all tangled up over here, using the Peyton's Stretch Sock. A lot of people don't like this yarn. It is, let me see what the fiber content is here. It is 41% cotton, 39% wool, and 13% nylon, and 7% elastic. So it's got it's real stretchy. You can kind of see that. I know it's not in focus, but it kind of stretches like that, and it feels really weird when you're knitting it if you're not used to it. But I love the way that the fabric comes out when it's knit. I like the way it feels. It's a little more cottony. since it has cotton in it. But here is what I have so far. Bring it back a little so you can see. There we go, that's good. This is the Cherry Sours colorway. And I am almost done with this. For summer socks, I like to just do like an ankle sock. I've got maybe half an inch left to do on this cuff, and then I'll bind off with, is it Judy's Super Stretchy Bind Off? Do I have the wrong name there? I can't remember, but it's the Super Stretchy Bind Off. I'm knitting these, and I've never done this before. I'm really liking it. I'm knitting these 2 at a time, but on separate needles. So I would do the toe on one, and then do the toe on the other, and then do the foot on one, do the foot on the other, the heel on one, the heel on the other. So the other one is done through the heel. I haven't done any of the cuff yet on this one. So, but it'll be really cool because they'll both be done pretty much at the same time. You know, I'll finish the cuff on this one, then I'll finish the cuff on that one, and voila, no second sock syndrome. So that makes me happy. I just leave the yarn in the skein for this brand. I kind of pull out the middle of it. There's always a little bit of yarn barf when I do that. But that's what it looks like in the skein. And I really like this colorway. I like it a lot. That's all I've been knitting on this week. How could I forget? I've got another She Shoots, She Scores. I'm wearing it. Y'all were probably screaming at me the whole time I was talking. I am wearing Mork, my finished Mork sweater designed by Julia Farwell Clay. I knitted this with Barocco Ultra Alpaca in the Redwood Mix colorway, and I can't remember the number of that colorway now, but it is in previous episodes, and if you need to know, just send me a private message and I'll get you that information. Used a size 6 US needle, that's 4 millimeters, and I love the way it turned out. Here is a picture of me wearing it. So it's hard to let you see the whole thing with the setup I have here. So I just had my husband take a quick picture before I started recording today. So I'll stand up just a little bit so you can see the cable detail on the front. I'm not going to turn around, but you also have that detail that I love so much on the sleeve. Now the sleeves came out a little bit longer maybe than I would have liked, but it hasn't actually bothered me as I've been wearing it today. So I got lucky. Today it is only in the 50s, so I feel comfortable wearing this sweater. It's been up in the 60s and 70s. Sorry, that back is hurting me again. So if I'm acting funny, I apologize. But it's been too warm for alpaca sweaters of late, so I was kind of excited today when it was cool enough for me to wear this. So, all right. That's it for that's it for the knitting. However, I do have some spinorama going on here in the zone. And I did a She Shoots, She Scores even. But first we'll start with the in progress spinorama going on here. Got too much stuff. Let me get this out of the way. That sock that I'm knitting is from the book you just saw go across the screen, and I'm going to review that in just a minute. It's from Socks a la carte 2, Toes Up. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But for now, we'll start with the spinorama. I am working, if you remember last week, I showed you the Falkland, that's what it is. The Falkland fiber from Godiva Yarns. And it didn't have a colorway name or anything, but it was in a real pretty pinks and greens. And I'll show you real quick. This is a picture of the unspun fiber. And then, of course, this is my first bobbin full of singles. I'm trying to spin this a little bit thicker. I'm going to two-ply it and try and get the barber pole effect going really well. I know I talked a little bit about that last week too, that I wanted it to do that on purpose and see how I liked it. So that is half the fiber, so that's 2 ounces. And then I've got the other half here still waiting in my little basket to be spun up. So we'll get to that later on this week. and hopefully have that finished to show you for next podcast. So my finished Spinorama, She Shoots, She Scores, on the Spinorama is the Friends in Fiber Falkland wool. It was 6 ounces in the Think Spring colorway. And I'm just checking to make sure I got that right here. I wound up with 600 yards. I think this is somewhere between a fingering and a sport weight. Might be up to DK in some places. I'm really bad at judging that until I actually swatch, get the needles out and swatch it, and then I figure out what kind of fabric I like with the yarn. So it's really hard for me to figure out what to knit with certain hand spuns. But I love, love, love the way this turned out. Here we go here. Is that just beautiful? I love the colors. This was a Navajo ply, so 3-ply, or chain plied if you want to call it that. I know I've heard there's a difference. I don't know what the difference is between Navajo ply and chain ply. So there it is, 600 yards. It has been washed and whacked, so it is pretty well balanced here. You see, it just kind of hangs there, hangs out for me. And the colors are just lovely, and this is so soft and squishy. Beautiful, wonderful to spin. It didn't give me any trouble. It didn't catch or anything. It wasn't sticky at all. It was really nice. Very pleasant to spin. So there is that. See if I can get this put back together here without making too much of a fuss. There we go. Nice big skein there. So that is it for all of my Fiber Arts projects, but I do want to bring you into the equipment room for just a minute. I wanted to review this book that I'm using to knit my toe-up socks that I'm doing, that I showed you just a minute ago. Sorry for that edit there. Had a little focusing problem with the camera, so hopefully that's fixed. So this week I want to review this book, Socks a la Carte 2, Toes Up. And this is by Jonelle Ruffino and Catherine Cade. This is a great book, great little book. It's my go-to reference when I'm just knitting socks and not really wanting a pattern or anything like that, not really needing any specific pattern. I tend to like vanilla socks. I don't put a lot of effort into like lacy or cabled socks, although one of my projects for the knit along, the finish along, is a pair of cabled socks. And I think that's why they got put aside, is because I just kind of ran out of steam on them. Anyway, back to the book. Socks a la Carte 2, Toes Up. Its little subtitle is Pick and Choose Patterns to Knit Socks Your Way. It's a great book. It starts out with, try not to shake the camera here, sorry guys. It starts out with some basic techniques, you know, and things like the anatomy of a sock, and things that, of course, it shows you how the book works, and I'll show you that in a minute. It's pretty cool. So yeah, here's the anatomy of a sock. It tells you, you know, what the cuff is and what the, oops, there we go. What the toe is, what the heel is. I'm pretty sure y'all can't read that, so I don't think I'm affecting any copyrights or anything. It shows you some different cast-ons. It walks you through with drawings how to do Judy's Magic Cast-On, which is my favorite cast-on for toe-up socks now. Shows you how to do a Turkish cast-on with pictures. I'll show you really quickly what these pictures look like, just so you can get an idea of how clear they are. It's really a nice resource. And then it gets right into foot patterns. And how this book works is, I just didn't give myself enough room here. Sorry if I'm bumping the camera. It gives you several different options for different feet. And the foot for them includes the toe and the heel. So the foot, it says, like this first one is a double up toe with an origami heel. And it tells you how to do the toe and the heel. And then it has different feet where it's got, some of them have different toes, different heels. So if I'm looking for a specific, you can mix and match those as well. So if I'm looking for, if I want to do a specific toe and I can't remember how to do it, I'll just look in this book real quick to figure it out. And the same thing with the heel is I'll just look and see. The only thing I don't like about the mix and match of the foot elements, toe and heel, is that it tells you to knit a specific length for the sock instead of saying knit until you're 2 inches before, 2 inches shorter than the total length of your foot. And so sometimes I forget because different heels require different amounts of space to work them. So like a short row heel, you're supposed to work the foot until it's 2 inches, inch and a half, 2 inches before, you know, the end of your foot. And different heels are different. Like if you do a gusset, you start that a lot earlier. So that's one thing I don't like so much about this book, but I can always find that information online, and I have most of it memorized for the heels that I like to use the most. But the kind of cool and unique thing about this book, which I'm not using for my current pair of socks because obviously I'm not doing any patterning on them, is that the cuff or the leg patterns, they have this cute little flip page section where you got your sock here, and then if you want to use a different kind of leg, there you go. And then you can mix and match your cuffs too. Each little part of the sock, it's hard to wrangle, is different. So you can do your different feet, your different cuffs, and your different legs. You know, whichever one you are wanting to try. I like this owl one. Oops. There's a lot of them too, so it's really cool. And of course it just refers you to the page where the actual patterns are. That kind of gives you an idea of what your sock will look like when it's finished. So this is definitely a book that gets a lot of use in my library, so I thought I would share it with you. Again, it's Socks a la Carte 2 Toes Up by Jonelle Ruffino and Catherine Cade. So check that out. Let's see, I'm not sure if it has the retail price on here or not. Retails for $22.99 US or $27.99 Canadian. So I'm sure you can get it cheaper online, but I do encourage you to support your local yarn shops and your local bookshops. I know my local yarn and bookshop, it's a combined. They're having a really hard time right now, so I'm really making an effort to try and purchase from them even when it's more expensive, because I do like having them around. It's nice to be able to go and actually touch the yarn and look through the books and things like that. So I guess that's my soapbox for this week. With that, let's get into the first intermission. Everybody grab your equipment and let's get on into the Rec League first intermission. I'll tell you about the knit along that I'm hosting right now. It's actually, I should call it a craft along because it's not just for knitting. For the next 6 weeks or so, April and May until May 31st, I am hosting the April-May finish along, and the rule is that you can finish any project that you started before April 15th, 2013, and post a picture in the thread on the Ravelry group before May 31st. I will draw a winner from those finished objects for the chance to win one of these 2 sets of stitch markers, or any Ravelry giftable pattern, $5 or less. So everybody get out those old UFOs, unfinished objects that you have set aside and maybe forgotten about, and let's finish them up. Welcome to the training room. It's been a slow fitness week for me. I have made some progress. I'm not going to show you my my fitness poster this week just because you just saw it last week, but I did make a little bit of progress. However, not feeling well earlier in the week, and then now of course I've got this issue with my back going on. I hope they can help me when I go get my massage later on. Maybe I'll be able to work out if they do, but you don't want to push it. So, been a little slow. I only worked out maybe 3 days in the past week, and I'm feeling yucky because of it. But, that's life. It happens, and the weather is getting nicer and nicer, and I am very hopeful that the running will start again in earnest shortly. So, pretty short on the fitness front this week. As for self-care, I guess my advice for the week is to do as I am doing today and make sure you set aside time for yourself to receive regular massage if that's something that you enjoy. If not, set aside regular time to stretch or to rest, to spend some time in the quiet, or take a hot bath, or any of the things that would help you to relax. Around the league here in the second intermission, wanted to share with you one of my one of my other favorite podcasts. I have a lot of favorite podcasts, don't I? But this one is the one that started it all for me. Not as far as watching podcasts, but as far as making my own. And I am, of course, referring to the Girlfriends Knitting podcast. It is hosted by Carolyn, and sometimes her partner Amy co hosts with her. They are a lot of fun to watch. Carolyn is great. She's usually flying solo, and really enjoy her. It's usually a shorter podcast, between 15 and 30 minutes most times, which is just perfect to fit in when you just have a little bit of time. She knits, I think she crochets a little bit. She does some quilting, and a few other little crafts, and she also spins occasionally. So check her out. She is also on a fitness journey. It seems like all of us podcasters are trying to get in shape. Not all of us, but it seems like many of us are trying to get in shape and be more healthy. So, Carolyn is actually the one who got me inspired to try Couch to 5K in the first place. So, she, about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, decided to host a fitness along type of thing in her group where we would encourage each other. She was starting the Couch to 5K, and different things happened, and she didn't complete it like she wanted to, but just having that support from her and from the group really helped me to complete mine. And I ran my first 5K back in October of 2012. So this podcast, Girlfriends Knitting, really holds a special place in my heart. Carolyn is such a sweetheart. When Carolyn had a hard time, a tough time that she went through recently, she lost her father, and a lot of us on her podcast group decided to kind of fill in for her, so to speak. We decided that we would try our hand at podcasting, and that is how the Holding the Sticks podcast started. At the same time, if you all are familiar with A Down Under Yarn by Fifikins, same story for her. We both started doing these little mini podcasts in the weeks when, I think I did 2 or maybe 3, I think it was only 2, in the weeks when Carolyn couldn't podcast because of everything that was going on in her life. We had a little thread over there in her group. So we did these little like 10-minute podcast episodes, and that's how I got started. So definitely go and check Carolyn's podcast out, Girlfriends Knitting. I think you'll enjoy it. Time to drop the puck for the third period and a little bit of hockey talk. I am going to talk a little bit today about how the playoffs work for the NHL and the AHL. We'll start with that, and then I'll give a little bit of an update on my 2 favorite hockey teams. So, it's funny because I kind of played this up last week as being very complicated and mathematically, difficult. And it really isn't, even though, I took all of these notes about how the playoffs work. It's really not that complicated when you think about it. What is complicated is when you're trying to figure out when certain teams are eliminated from playoff contention and things like that. That's not something I'm going to go into because it just boggles my mind completely. I still don't understand exactly how the gurus at the NHL or in the hockey media figure out in the run up to the playoffs when exactly a team no longer has the chance of making it. I'm sure there's a formula and it's probably not as difficult as I'm making it out to be, but for my non-numerical mind, I'm not going to go there. So anyway, I'm going to start out with the way the NHL playoffs work because it's very similar, NHL and AHL playoff format. What happens is during the regular season, teams earn points for games won, and they use those points to add them up to figure out who is eligible to make the playoffs. So if a team in the regular season, when a team wins a game, they get 2 points. If a team loses, obviously, if a team loses in regulation time, then obviously they don't get any points. If a team loses in overtime or in a shootout, and I've talked about those things in a previous episode, then they get 1 point in the standings. So that's what we're talking about when I talk about points in the standings. 2 points for a win, 1 point for an overtime loss. If you lose in regulation, obviously you don't get any points. So all those points over the course of the season are added up. And the way the NHL is set up, there are 2 conferences. I always get conferences and divisions mixed up in my mind, so forgive me. They are, I had to look at my notes, 2 conferences, the East and the West. Now this is going to change next year, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For now, there's the East Conference and the West Conference, and then there are 3 divisions in each conference. So I'm not going to name all of those. 8 teams from each conference make the playoffs. So you get 8 from the East and 8 from the West. So I don't know if you all are familiar with other sports and playoffs. If you've heard of seeds, that's how they place the playoff teams. So they want to put the teams in an order from the best to the least best. Which, you know, if you make the playoffs, you're one of the best. So I can't really say from the best to the worst, because that doesn't make any sense. But how they do it, they take the top 3, or they take from the 3 conferences, the team at the top of each of those 3 divisions. See, I told you I get those mixed up. 2 conferences with 3 divisions each. So those 3 divisions, they take the top team from each division. So that's your first 3 seeds. And then, you know, depending on how many points each of those has is how they seed them 1, 2, 3. Then they take the rest of the teams from that conference and they add up all their points to seed them 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then what happens is they do a, what do they call it? Top to bottom pair up for the first round of playoffs. So the first seed plays the 8th seed. The second seed plays the 7th seed. Third plays the 6th, and the 4th plays the 5th. So the higher seed you have, the more likely you're going to get to play a team that is rated less, like further down from you. It doesn't always matter, however. Just because you're number 1 seed doesn't mean you're going to win the playoffs. It's just like any other sport. So that's the first round. So there are, you know, 8 games going on for that first round. And the winners of those 2 teams, or those 2... Okay, so I have whipped up a little diagram here to show you how the playoff format works. You may hear my neighbor mowing in the background. I'm sorry if you do, but I wanted to whip this up real quick and show y'all a diagram to help you see exactly how the format is. So if you'll look, we have the 2 conferences represented on each side of the paper. We've got West over here and East over here. So when it starts out, I'm just going to focus on the West Conference to start, because it's just a mirror image of what goes on in the East. And then, well, we'll get there in a minute. So you start out with 8 teams playing 4 games in the first round of playoffs. The winners of those 4 games will play each other. So then you'll have 2 games being played there. And the winners of those 2 games play each other for the conference title. So this is all hypothetical, obviously. I had the 4th seed winning the West in this particular one. Same thing in the East. You start with the 8, you go down to 4 teams, down to 2 teams, and then I had the 1st seed winning in the East. And then these 2 teams, 4th seed from the West in this case, and the 1st seed from the East will play each other for the Stanley Cup. So that is how it works. The NHL also, it's not just play one game and you're done. We call that one and done. In the NHL, it is a 7-game series for each one. So the first team to win 4 games, best 4 out of 7 basically, will move on to the next level or the next round of playoffs. So, in basketball, you play 1 game and whoever loses that game is out and the winner goes on to the next round. In hockey, in NHL hockey, it's 7 games. And then, the winner of that 7-game series goes on. Sort of like baseball. From what I understand, I don't watch baseball at all. So if I'm wrong, don't laugh at me too hard. Or fine, you can laugh. I don't mind making people laugh. I kind of like it. So the only real difference between that and the AHL is that the first round in the AHL is a best 3 out of 5 series instead of 4 out of 7. I thought that this year they had switched to all of the rounds being best 3 out of 5, but from what I have read, when I did, I always try and make sure I'm giving you all the right information. So I went online and did a little research, and it looks like it's just the first round that is 3 out of 5, and then the following rounds go 4 out of 7, like the NHL. Now in the NHL, they play for the Stanley Cup, and in the AHL, they play for the Calder Cup. So there's a lot of history behind those 2 trophies. So it's really pretty cool to see that awarded every year. And that's about it. If that didn't make any sense at all, feel free to ask me questions as always. I'm always happy to answer any questions you might have. And that was a little more complicated to explain than I expected. So as far as my teams go, the Hurricanes were unfortunately eliminated from the playoff picture this week. They have no hope of making it into the postseason playoffs. So they're just playing for the fun of it, or to maybe spoil other teams' chances at this point. But they have 4 games left in the season, first of which will be this afternoon. Hopefully I'll be home from my massage in time to catch the whole thing. We'll see. Checkers, however, my AHL team, have clinched a playoff spot, and with a win last night, they clinched home ice advantage, so that is really exciting. I always thought that home ice advantage meant that the playoff series would start in your home rink, and apparently that's not true, because the Checkers clinched home ice, but they're starting the series against the team that they're playing, which I'm not sure if that's been determined yet. I think it's going to be the Houston Aeros, but I'm not positive that that's 100% true. We're still waiting for other results, of course, from across the league. But anyway, I guess home ice advantage makes it so you have the possibility of playing most of the games at home. So the first 2 games of the 5-game series will be away, and then game 3 will be in Charlotte, and if it's necessary to go on to game 4 and 5, those will also be in Charlotte. So unfortunately, those are all on days I won't be able to attend, but I will be listening at home and cheering loudly, maybe even loudly enough they'll hear me all the way in Charlotte, knowing me. But I'm really excited. Another really cool thing that happened over the past week is the Charlotte Checkers starting goalie from last year, came back and actually had his first start of this season. A couple of nights ago, Mike Murphy came back. He spent a little time in the KHL, that's the Russian Hockey League. They tested him out for a while over there and then sent him home. They weren't impressed, I guess, but he's always been wonderful in net for us, and it was really cool to see him between the pipes again. So that was the little cool thing that happened this week, hockey-wise. I think that's about it, so let's get into the post-game chatter. Okay, let's get into just a little bit of post-game chatter. 1 minute mom update. It's probably going to be less than a minute this time. She had her third chemotherapy treatment on Wednesday, and that means she's halfway done with chemo. Woohoo! Go mom! Go mom! Go mom! So we are getting, the end is in sight. We're getting closer and closer. Usually I would be down there with her this weekend. We typically go down the weekend after and several days after her chemo treatments. However, my older sister asked to take a longer shift, if you will, this time, and I will go down for longer next time so that Anna can have some time for a little bit of fun for herself, which she definitely needs as a mother of two. It will be good for her to be able to do that. So I am happy to help out in that way, and glad to be able to do that. Other than that, not a whole lot going on here. It was a little bit of a stressful week at work. It's been really slow. I guess it's just a little bit of a spring slump. It should pick up and be pretty crazy here starting in May. That's when all of our summer residents return, and things get real busy at that point. So it's good that I'm getting in for a massage today, because once that picks up, it'll be harder for me to schedule that. So I don't think there's anything else. If you heard any background noise today, I apologize. My husband is home, and I, you know, didn't feel that I should ask him to be super quiet, so I didn't. But he's pretty quiet anyway most of the time. He had to mow the lawn for the first time this spring, and everything is so beautiful and green outside. We have wind gusts up to 30 miles an hour or so today, or I would have been very tempted to record outside even though it's pretty chilly. One of these days I will get to record outside, and this summer I am hoping to do some hiking in the area and take the camera I used to use, which is not a webcam, it's an actual camera I can take with me and not have to have a computer attached to it, and take some video up on some of the hiking trails around here. So that will be fun this summer after the hockey is finished. There will be still hockey talk after the hockey seasons are over, because a lot happens in the business side of hockey over the summer. So I'll be talking about free agency and trades that are going on and acquisitions. The draft will be happening, all of this kind of fun stuff. And that will be kind of cool for me, because I've always kind of followed all of that, but I don't know a whole lot about it. So I will be learning along with y'all about some of those things. So until next time, may all of your fiber arts projects and your favorite hockey teams stay out of the penalty box.